The Grand Hall of the Galactic Alliance headquarters buzzed with the usual cacophony of a dozen different species engaged in diplomatic discourse. Screens flickered with translations in various scripts, and the air was thick with the scent markers of at least 8 different worlds. Through this sensory assault moved Lyra Chun, her human frame looking particularly fragile next to the towering Arcturians and the heavily armored Drell. She kept her head high despite the whispers that followed her. "Another savage," hissed a Zeronian diplomat to his companion as she passed. "I don't know why they're even permitted in these chambers." Lyra's jaw tightened, but she didn't break stride. The insult wasn't new. Humans have been called savages since their admission to the Alliance 50 years ago. A young species, barely spacefaring for a century, humans were tolerated rather than respected among the ancient civilizations that comprised the governing body of this sector of the galaxy. Her destination was the lower-level linguistic archives, where she'd been granted limited access to study comparative xenolinguistics, a concession given only after 3 rejected applications and the reluctant sponsorship of Dr. Thales, a Centaurian philologist who saw potential in her work, if not in her species. As she entered the quiet sanctuary of the archives, Lyra spotted a familiar figure hunched over a console. Alara Voss, her close friend and one of the few human pilots granted a license to navigate Alliance space, though only for cargo runs along predetermined routes. Alara's dark hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, revealing the thin scar that ran from her temple to her jaw, a reminder of the accident during her pilot certification when a Drell examiner had deliberately sabotaged her navigation system. "I thought you were shipping medical supplies to Proxima," Lyra said, sliding into the seat beside her. "Got back early. The Proximan customs officials forgot to process my landing clearance. I sat in orbit for 6 hours before they deigned to let the savage land." Alara's voice was light, but her eyes burned with the same frustration that Lyra felt daily. "I've been suspended for a week for schedule non-compliance." As if it was my fault, Lyra squeezed her friend's shoulder. "One day, they'll see us differently." "I'm not holding my breath," Alara replied, then nodded at Lyra's datapad. "Any progress with your research?" "Some." Lyra activated her screen, revealing complex matrices of symbols. "I've been studying the common linguistic roots across Alliance species. There are patterns that shouldn't exist, indicators of a shared ancestral language among species that evolved on completely different worlds." "You still think the precursors are the key?" "The ancients, the gods, the precursors, whatever name you use, yes. I believe they left more than just ruins and myths. They left a legacy in our very words." Lyra lowered her voice. "And I think humans might have a stronger connection to that legacy than the Alliance wants to admit." Alara arched an eyebrow. "That would explain why they're so eager to keep us away from precursor sites." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Lyra's personal communicator. A message from her research assistant at the Earth University outpost flashed across her screen. Asterisk unusual signal detected from restricted sector G9. Pattern matching your frequency algorithms at 72%. Alliance has classified information. Call me ASAP. Asterisk. Lyra's heart raced. Sector G9 was off limits to all but the highest clearance Alliance vessels, supposedly the site of an unstable neutron star, but rumors suggested it held one of the largest untouched precursor complexes ever discovered. That night, Lyra dreamed of symbols etched in starlight, of words spoken in a language her conscious mind couldn't comprehend, but that resonated in her very cells. She woke with tears streaming down her face and a certainty that shouldn't have been possible. She needed to go to Sector G9. 3 weeks later, Lyra stood in the cramped cargo hold of the Horizon, a decommissioned Alliance scout vessel that Alara had repurposed through channels best left unmentioned. Around her, a small team of humans prepared for a journey that could revolutionize their species' standing or end with their imprisonment for violating at least 16 Alliance regulations. Dr. Xavier Reyes, xenobiologist and expert in precursor artifacts, was checking his equipment for the 3rd time. His meticulous nature had made him one of the few humans granted limited access to Alliance biological archives, though his theories about human DNA containing precursor markers had nearly gotten him expelled. Twins Maya and Marcus Okafor, engineers specializing in ancient technology integration, were finalizing modifications to the ship's sensors. Their reputation for working miracles with obsolete tech had made them invaluable to this unsanctioned mission. Captain Diana Mercer, former Alliance military liaison, before being demoted for insubordination when she questioned the restricted access policies for human officers, was reviewing tactical scenarios with Alara. Both women bore the proud stance and watchful eyes of those who had fought too hard for too little respect. And finally, there was Shun Wei, quantum physicist and the most reluctant member of their crew. His groundbreaking work on dimensional resonance had cost him his position at the Alliance Science Academy when he suggested that humans might be particularly attuned to certain precursor technologies. Now he monitored a device of his own creation, one designed to amplify and track the mysterious signal that had started Lyra's obsession. Final checks complete, Alara announced. We have a 6-hour window before the Alliance patrol sweeps this sector. Once we're out, we'll need to make 3 random jumps before heading to G9 to throw off any tracking. Are we really doing this? Shin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. If we're caught, we were already dead, Diana interjected. Dead to history, dead to progress, dead to any real future for humanity beyond being the Alliance's errand runners and manual laborers. Lyra stepped into the center of the group. I've had the dreams again. Stronger this time. Whatever is in Sector G9 is calling to us, specifically to us. I believe it's proof that humans aren't just some cosmic accident or evolutionary footnote. We're part of something bigger, something the Alliance either doesn't know or doesn't want us to know. The language of the gods, Marcus said with a half-smile. That's what my grandmother used to call the precursor scripts. She said humans would one day remember how to read them, and the stars would be ours again. Let's hope she was right, Alara said, strapping herself into the pilot's seat. Because we're about to bet our lives on it. The Horizon slipped away from the orbital dock with minimal thrust, using the larger commercial vessels as cover until they were clear of Earth's immediate sensor range. Alara's hands danced over the controls with the precision of a concert pianist, coaxing performance from the aging ship that should have been impossible. Their first jump took them to the outskirts of the Proxima system, where they briefly powered down to avoid detection by the monitoring stations. The second jump sent them through the dangerous but rarely patrolled Tannhauser debris field, where Alara's exceptional piloting skills were put to the test as she navigated through unpredictable swarms of metallic fragments at speeds that left everyone else clutching their restraints. The third jump deposited them in empty space, far from any travel lanes or monitoring posts. It was here, in the silence between stars, that they prepared for the final leap that would take them into forbidden territory. Signal is getting stronger, Shin reported, eyes fixed on his instruments. Whatever it is, it's definitely in G9 and it's pulsing, almost like a heartbeat. Any Alliance vessels on long-range scanners? Diana asked, monitoring the security systems. Nothing yet, but we should assume they have sensors we can't detect, Maya replied. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling a strange resonance within her mind as they drew closer to their destination. The dreams had been coming nightly now, symbols flowing like water, structures that defied Euclidean geometry, and always the sense that something ancient and powerful was awakening. Final coordinates locked, Alara announced. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The stars blurred, and reality itself seemed to fold around them. When the universe snapped back into focus, they were in Sector G9, and the view stole their breath away. There was no neutron star. Instead, an enormous planetary body hung in space, its surface a complex lattice of metallic structures that covered the entire sphere. It shimmered with a faint blue luminescence, pulses of energy visibly flowing along geometric patterns across its surface. That's a Dyson sphere, Dr. Reyes whispered, awe evident in his voice. Or at least a partial one. a megastructure built around a small star or power source. The Alliance has been hiding a complete precursor artificial world. And it's active, Marcus added, checking the sensor readings. Not at full power, but definitely functioning after who knows how many millennia. Lyra could barely breathe. The signal that had haunted her dreams was broadcasting clearly now, a complex mathematical pattern that repeated with variations she somehow recognized as linguistic in nature. Take us closer, she instructed Alara. To that structure near the northern pole, it seems to be the source of the strongest transmissions. As they approached, the scale of the megastructure became even more apparent. What had appeared as fine latticework, from a distance revealed itself to be massive cities, transportation networks, and what could only be described as temples or monuments rising from the engineered surface. The architecture was both organic and mathematical, curves flowing into precise angles in ways that seemed to challenge the eye's ability to process them. Their approach did not go unnoticed. As they neared the northern structure, a vast spire that rose miles above the surface, several smaller objects detached from the megastructure and moved toward their ship with unnerving precision. Automated defenses? Diana asked, hands moving to the rudimentary weapons systems they had installed. No, Lyra said with unexpected certainty. They're escorts. They're guiding us in. Indeed, the objects took positions around the horizon and emitted pulses of light that created a visible corridor leading toward a massive opening in the spire's side. This is either a trap or an invitation, Alara said, hands steady on the controls. Your call, Lyra. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the signal pulsing in perfect synchronization with her heartbeat now. Follow them in. This is what we came for. The landing bay was cavernous, with docking mechanisms that adjusted themselves to accommodate the unknown configuration of the horizon. After settling the ship, they donned their environmental suits, not trusting the readings that suggested the atmosphere within the structure was perfectly breathable, and stepped out onto the smooth metallic floor. The interior of the spire was illuminated by the same soft blue light that pulsed across the planet's surface. Corridors stretched in multiple directions, their walls inscribed with intricate symbols that Lyra recognized from her dreams. She approached one wall, removing her glove to touch the engravings despite the protests of her companions. The moment her fingers made contact, the symbols flared with increased luminosity, and a shock of recognition coursed through her body. Information flooded her mind, not as words or images, but as pure concepts, mathematical relationships, and spatial dimensions. I can read it, she gasped, pulling her hand away. Not read exactly, but understand. It's like it's speaking directly to my thoughts. What does it say? Dr. Reyes asked, scanning the symbols with his instruments. It's a welcome message and a warning. This facility has been in standby mode for. She struggled with the time concept. Millions of years awaiting suitable heirs. Heirs? Diana questioned. Heirs to what? Before Lyra could answer, the floor beneath them began to reconfigure, forming a path that led deeper into the structure. The lights pulsed in a pattern that seemed to invite them forward. I think we're about to find out, Lyra said, leading the way down the newly formed corridor. The path led them through chambers of increasing complexity and beauty. They passed rooms containing what appeared to be artistic installations, dynamic sculptures of light and matter that moved in harmony with their presence. Other spaces held what Reyes identified as biological research facilities, though the technology was so advanced it bordered on magical. The twins were entranced by engineering systems that seemed to operate on principles that contradicted known physics, while Shin frantically recorded data from what appeared to be a dimensional observatory, showing real-time views of multiple parallel realities. Finally, they reached the heart of the spire, a vast spherical chamber with a platform suspended in its center. The platform was empty except for a simple pedestal, and the walls of the chamber were covered entirely in the glowing symbols. As they stepped onto the platform, a voice spoke, not in sound waves, but directly into their minds. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old, but carried an unmistakable sense of ancient wisdom. Asterisk, the children return. The seed patterns recognize their own. Asterisk. Lyra stepped forward, drawn to the pedestal as if by gravitational pull. We are humans from Earth. We've come seeking knowledge about our past, about our connection to those you call the precursors. Asterisk, precursors. Gods. Ancients. Names change. Essence remains. You carry the pattern. You speak the first tongue without knowing. Asterisk. The first tongue, Lyra asked. Asterisk, the language of creation. The code that shapes reality. Lost to most, but embedded in your kind. Asterisk. The pedestal began to glow, and above it formed a holographic display of the galaxy. Certain star systems illuminated in the same blue light as the structure around them. Asterisk, the network sleeps. The children scattered. The oppressors rose in the absence of guidance. Asterisk. The alliance species, Diana whispered. They're the oppressors? Asterisk, neither oppressors nor saviors. Simply those who found without understanding, who use without knowing, who guard without purpose. Asterisk. The hologram zoomed in on Earth, then displayed a complex double helix that Reyes immediately recognized as DNA, though with structures he had never seen before. Asterisk, the final refuge. When the darkness came, when the enemy beyond threatened all, the Shapers hid their essence in the simplest life on the most distant world. Evolution's slow path. Memories buried deep. But the call was sent when the pattern matured. Asterisk. Lyra's mind raced as the implications became clear. You're saying humans are descendants of the precursors? That we carry their genetic legacy? Asterisk, not descendants. Continuations. Different form, same essence. The language sleeps in your cells, in your thoughts. It awakens now. Asterisk. The pedestal opened, revealing a crystalline device that rose to hover before Lyra. It pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, with the signals that had called her across the stars. Asterisk, speak the words that call to you, child of the Shapers. Awaken what sleeps. Asterisk. Without conscious thought, Lyra found her lips forming sounds she had never spoken before, words that seemed to resonate with the very structure of reality. As she spoke, the crystal flared with blinding light, and the entire chamber responded, symbols flowing like liquid across the walls. The voices of the past and future filled her mind, teaching her a language that was more than communication. It was command. The language of the gods, the code that had built this place, that had shaped stars and moved planets. And somehow, it felt like coming home, like remembering rather than learning. When the light faded, Lyra stood transformed, not physically, but with an awareness that expanded beyond normal human consciousness. She understood now. The crystal had activated dormant neural pathways, allowing her to access knowledge embedded in human DNA millennia ago. It's a key, she told her awestruck companions. In an archive, the precursors, the Shapers, it didn't vanish. They became us. They encoded their knowledge, their power, their very essence into our ancestors during a cosmic catastrophe. Humans aren't primitive newcomers to the galactic stage. We're the heirs to its creators, awakening after a long sleep. Why hide this from us? Alara asked. Why would the Alliance keep this secret? Asterisk, some know, some fear. Most are ignorant. The younger races found the remnants without finding the key. They built their covenant upon the relics they discovered, claiming guardianship of mysteries they cannot unlock. Asterisk. And now, Dr. Reyes asked, what happens now that we've found this place? Asterisk, choice. Always choice. Reclaim the network. Reawaken the slumbering worlds. Or remain silent, separate, safe in ignorance. Asterisk. Lyra looked at her friends, seeing the weight of this revelation in their eyes. We can't keep this to ourselves. This changes everything, not just for humanity, but for all species. The Alliance will never just accept this, Diana warned. They'll try to seize control, to suppress the truth. Then we make sure they can't, Lyra replied, her voice stronger than before. We learn enough to prove our claim, to demonstrate our connection. We use the language of the gods to awaken our birthright. For 3 days, they remained at the spire, absorbing what knowledge they could. Lyra progressed the fastest, her mind seemingly designed to interface with the systems around them. She learned to speak commands that reconfigured matter, that accessed dimensional pockets, that communicated with the semi-sentient systems of the megastructure. The others specialized according to their expertise. Reyes in the biological sciences that explained human compatibility with precursor technology, the twins in engineering principles that defied conventional physics, Shun in the quantum mathematics that underpin the language itself, Diana in the history of the great conflict that had led to the Shaper's desperate gambit, and Ilera in the navigation systems that would lead them to other nodes in the ancient network. When they finally departed, they carried with them irrefutable evidence of humanity's true heritage, along with artifacts that responded only to human touch. Small crystals similar to the one that had awakened Lyra, each programmed to activate the dormant knowledge in selected humans. Their return journey was tense, with Alliance patrol ships appearing to have increased in the region. One particularly close encounter forced them to use precursor technology to briefly shift their vessel slightly out of phase with normal space, a trick that left them all with splitting headaches but allowed them to pass undetected. As they approached Earth space, they debated their next move. "We could just take this public," Marcus suggested. "Broadcast everything we've learned to every human settlement, and be labeled as terrorists or madmen," Diana countered. "The Alliance would lock us away and dismiss everything as hallucinations or forgeries. We need to demonstrate the truth in a way they can't ignore," Lyra said, the crystal from the spire now hanging from a chain around her neck. "We need to show them that we're not savages. We're the heirs to the civilization they've been worshipping as gods." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Upon their return, they discovered that their unauthorized expedition had not gone unnoticed. Alliance authorities had identified the Horizon's departure and tracked its general direction. Lyra and Ilera were summoned to appear before the Alliance Security Council to answer charges of violating restricted space and engaging in unauthorized archaeological activities. Rather than flee, they decided to confront the challenge head-on. The Grand Chamber of the Alliance Security Council was designed to intimidate. A vast amphitheater with the accused standing in a circle of light, while representatives of 24 species sat in ascending tiers of darkness. High Arbiter Zorax, a Zeronian known for his particular disdain for humans, presided. Lyra, Chun, and Ilera Voss, he intoned, his translator giving his multi-toned speech a metallic edge. "You stand accused of grave violations of Alliance law. Your vessel penetrated Sector G9, a restricted zone containing hazardous celestial phenomena. Your actions endangered not only yourselves, but potentially the stability of the entire region." "With respect, High Arbiter," Lyra replied, "we both know that Sector G9 contains no neutron star or other natural hazard. It houses a precursor megastructure, one that holds truths the Alliance has chosen to hide." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Zorax's compound eyes narrowed. "Your accusations are as baseless as they are insulting. The restrictions on certain sectors are for the protection of all species, particularly those like humans who lack the experience to properly navigate such dangers." Ilera stepped forward. "Then how do you explain this?" She activated a holographic projector that displayed the Dyson sphere they had visited. "This structure has been transmitting signals specifically calibrated to human neural patterns, signals that the Alliance has been suppressing for decades. Forgeries," dismissed Counselor Thax of the Drell hegemony. "Primitive attempts to claim significance beyond your species' obvious limitations." "We expected denial," Lyra said calmly. She reached for the crystal at her neck. "Perhaps a demonstration is required." Before the council guards could react, Lyra began to speak in the language of the gods, words that resonated with the very molecules of the chamber around them. The air shimmered, and the crystals embedded in the council's ancient podiums, artifacts recovered from precursor sites and used as symbols of authority, began to glow in response. What trickery is this? Zorax demanded, rising from his seat as the crystal before him reconfigured itself into a complex geometric form. Not trickery, High Arbiter. Recognition. Lyra continued speaking, and the holographic systems of the chamber responded to her commands, displaying not the agenda of the day, but star maps and historical records extracted from the Precursor Archive, records that showed the true history of the galaxy and humanity's place in it. Impossible, whispered a Centaurian representative. The artifacts respond only to authorized council members who possess the proper activation codes. They respond to the language of the gods, Lyra corrected. A language encoded in human DNA by those you call the precursors, our ancestors. The chamber erupted in chaos as Lyra's words and the responding technology shattered centuries of carefully maintained beliefs. Guards moved forward, but found themselves held in place by fields of energy emanating from the now-active crystals. You dare to claim kinship with the Shapers of Worlds? Zorax's voice cut through the din, his tone oscillating between outrage and fear. Humans, barely civilized, barely spacefaring savages, as the heirs to the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. Lyra raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent, not by choice, but by the command she had issued to the environmental systems. In the sudden quiet, her voice carried to every corner. You called us savages, she said, her eyes meeting Zorax's compound gaze without flinching, until we spoke the language of your gods. The Shapers foresaw a threat beyond the galaxy's edge, a threat that forced them to hide their essence in a remote, primitive world, encoding their knowledge in a species that would evolve unnoticed until the time was right to reclaim their legacy. She gestured, and the holographic display showed the catastrophic war that had led to the Precursor's decision, a conflict with an extragalactic force that had nearly annihilated all life in the Milky Way. That time has come. The enemy they fled will return. The defenses they created require the language to activate. Humanity does not seek to dominate the Alliance. We seek to fulfill our purpose and protect all sentient life, just as our ancestors intended. The security fields deactivated, and the crystal around Lyra's neck dimmed its glow. The council members remained frozen in shock, their worldview irrevocably altered by what they had witnessed. A Ganari elder, oldest among the council members and representative of species known for their historical knowledge, slowly rose from his seat. The ancient texts speak of the Shapers becoming as children to save what they had built. We believed it metaphorical, that they had ascended beyond physical form. But this, he gestured to the still active artifacts around the chamber. This suggests a more literal interpretation. This proves nothing, Zorax insisted, though with less conviction. Parlor tricks and stolen technology. Then explain why these artifacts, which have been studied by your best scientists for centuries without revealing their secrets, now respond to human commands, Ilera challenged. Explain why the structure in Sector G9 activated only when humans arrived, after lying dormant during countless Alliance expeditions. Dr. Reyes and the others had entered the chamber during the commotion, bringing with them the additional artifacts they had recovered. He stepped forward now. We offer proof beyond demonstrations. Genetic analyses showing precursor markers in human DNA. Activation protocols that respond only to human neural patterns. Star charts showing the full network of precursor installations. Installations that have remained dormant because they lacked the proper activation signal. The debate raged for hours, then days. Some council members demanded the immediate quarantine of all humans and seizure of the artifacts. Others, seeing the implications for the galaxy's future, advocated for cooperation. A few, particularly those whose species had historical grievances with the dominant Alliance powers, seemed almost pleased at the disruption of the established order. Through it all, Lyra and her companions stood firm, offering evidence, demonstrations, and ultimately a choice. Humanity does not seek to overthrow the Alliance, Lyra told the council during the final session. We seek to fulfill our purpose, to reactivate the network, to prepare the galaxy for coming challenges, to share what knowledge we can unlock. We can do this with you as partners, or we can do this alone. But we will do it because that is why we exist. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. The Alliance could not ignore the evidence before them, nor could they contain the information that had already begun spreading through communication channels across human settlements. A new accord was drafted, one that recognized humanity's unique connection to precursor technology and established joint oversight of the activation process. The transition was not smooth. Incidents of violence against humans increased in some regions as fear and resentment boiled over. Certain Alliance factions attempted to seize control of precursor sites by force, only to discover that without human operators, the technology remained stubbornly inert. Alera led the effort to establish a human presence at key nodes throughout the network, navigating both the physical challenges of reaching distant installations and the political minefields of Alliance resistance. Her skills as a pilot made her a legend among the new fleet of human exploration vessels, each equipped with recovered precursor technology that gave them capabilities beyond conventional Alliance ships. Dr. Reyes headed a joint research initiative that studied the awakening process in human subjects, carefully selecting individuals for activation while monitoring for any adverse effects. The power of the language of the gods came with responsibilities, and not every human proved capable of handling the neural strain. The twins established an engineering academy to bridge modern Alliance technology with precursor systems, creating new hybrid technologies that benefited all species while carefully restricting access to the most powerful applications. Diana oversaw security for the growing human endeavor, training specialists who could protect precursor installations without escalating conflicts with Alliance hardliners who still resisted the new reality. Shin developed theoretical frameworks that allowed non-humans to better understand the principles behind precursor technology, if not directly interface with it. His work built bridges between human intuitive understanding of a language and the rigorous scientific traditions of other species. And Lyra became the voice of humanity's awakening. She traveled between worlds, demonstrating the reality of human heritage while extending the hand of cooperation. She established protocols for activating dormant human potential, for teaching the language to those whose minds could bear it, for ensuring that this newfound power served creation rather than domination. In private moments, she sometimes wondered if the Shapers had made the right choice, if humanity was truly ready for the responsibility they had inherited. The language gave power that could reshape planets, that could potentially alter the fabric of reality itself. In the wrong hands, it could become a weapon beyond imagining. But then she would remember the archive's warnings about the threat that still lurked beyond the galaxy's edge, the enemy that had driven the Shapers to such desperate measures. Humanity's awakening had not come too soon. If anything, they might already be too late. 5 years after their return from Sector 9, Lyra stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the first joint human alliance installation built with precursor principles. Through the transparent walls, she could see Earth shining like a jewel against the blackness of space, while all around, the fruits of cooperation transformed the solar system. Alera joined her, fresh from a mission to a newly activated installation in the Cygnus Arm. The councils approved your proposal for the Defender Grid. Even Zorax voted in favor, though I'm told he looked physically pained to do so. Lyra smiled. He's learning. They all are. Change takes time, especially when it involves accepting that the savages are actually the heirs to the gods they've been worshipping all along. Alera laughed, but there was a warmth to it now that had been absent in the days of bitterness and exclusion. We were all wrong, in our own ways, Lyra said softly, touching the crystal that still hung at her neck, now understood as a key to humanity's dormant neural architecture. The Alliance species weren't our oppressors. They were caretakers who didn't understand what they were protecting. And humans weren't just victims. We were sleeping guardians, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Poetic Alera teased. You've been practicing that for the council session tomorrow, haven't you? Maybe a little, Lyra admitted. But it's true. We're writing a new chapter in a very old story, one that belongs to all of us. Beyond the station, a vessel of new design emerged from a fold in space, sleek and luminous, built with recovered knowledge, but piloted by a mixed crew of humans and alliance species. Not all precursor technology required human operation. With study and cooperation, many systems could be adapted for wider use. The Concordia is back from the galactic rim, Ilera noted. Early reports say they've detected anomalies consistent with the Archive's warnings. The Shaper's ancient enemy may indeed be stirring. Lyra nodded, her expression growing serious. Then we continue as planned. Activation of all major nodes within a year. Defender grid operational within 3. Full integration of compatible alliance systems by the end of the decade. She paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and now felt like home. We'll be ready. From savages to saviors, Ilera mused. Not a journey I expected to make in my lifetime. The journey's just beginning, Lyra replied. But at least now we're walking it together, all species as the Shapers intended. As if in response, the crystal at her neck pulsed with soft blue light, the language of the gods whispering promises of challenges and wonders yet to come.